Hello and welcome back to TF1C, the Formula 1 chat, where today we're going to be reviewing the Grand Prix weekend in Canada. Finally returned to Canada. Well, it was 2019, the last race there. It's been a while. And to be honest, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I think the cars following closely seemed to be as it usually was, but there was no real overtakes. There's a very severe lack of any moves. I mean, there was a lot of DRS trains, where we've seen that this year we shouldn't be seeing that, based on what the FIA have told us the regulations will achieve. So we had a lot of DRS trains. We saw the move for the lead. Sainz was there for 12 laps. I know Max Verstappen did incredibly to hold him up, but if he has DRS on two straights, he was using ERS, and the Ferrari is pretty much equal to the Red Bull. So, and Carlos is by no means a bad driver, so it does beg the question, have the regulations worked? Then we saw Leclerc, of course, he couldn't cut through the field either. Perez, before his engine problems, couldn't really cut through. I think overall, wasn't a great race. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it was great to be back racing in Montreal, as you said, but I agree. I think Martin Brundle said this on the TV broadcast, is that there's two things in Canada. Either you get stuck behind despite having the DRS, and you, as you said, end up with a big DRS chain, or if we do get a move, you zoom past because the DRS is so long. Yeah,
well, it's the challenge of the overtake, isn't it? Which is often a debate in Formula 1, because if you're a circuit designer, you want overtakes to be possible, but you don't want overtakes to be easy. So it's finding that right balance, because if it's too hard, you won't see enough and it becomes boring. And if it's too easy, you see too many and it becomes boring. So you need to find you need to strike a good balance. Canada kind of has that in a way, because it's impossible to overtake in large sections of the track, but there's a really easy. So you could argue that, I do think it's too easy.
With Canada, it's either too hard or too easy. You don't have that balance where it could be different.
There's too much DRS, I think, on the straight. Yeah. One, the double DRS is mental. So I'd make the first DRS, so the final straight.
Yeah.
The one before the start-finish line.
Yeah. Big back
into the final corner. I'd have that DRS end a lot earlier, because I think then it gives chance for the driver behind to so if it's a DRS train, you can catch up to the guy in front if you've got a faster engine or a faster car.
To start later, because I think obviously it closes as soon as you brake, doesn't it? So it'd have to start later. It can end earlier.
I don't know. It just DRS seemed a little bit overpowered on that one straight.
Yeah.
And then everywhere else on the track, you couldn't make a move.
So when it's not a great track, though, you can always rely on one thing to make it interesting, and that is rain.
I was disappointed there wasn't any rain on the Sunday, but let's get into the Saturday then. We'll discuss qualifying. Should we start? Well, obviously we start with the back, where I think the biggest shock was Sebastian Vettel. Now, if you told me a few weeks ago that Seb would be down in Q3, out in Q1, sorry, then I wouldn't have been too surprised by that. But after FP3 pace showed that Vettel looked to be it was P3, wasn't he? FP3.
So in practice 1, Vettel was 9th. Practice 2, he was 4th. Practice 3, he was 3rd.
Exactly. They looked to have the pace, Aston, but then
double out.
Well, yeah. So it appears to be a problem with the pressure in the tyre. What Aston did was they upped the pressure to try and combat the fact that it was going to be very wet. The problem is it then got really dry, and they sent the drivers out on the same very high pressure wet tyres, meant they basically just burned up the tyres and had no chance of setting a fast lap. So Seb, very furious, and understandably furious at Aston for getting that so wrong, and it's cost him. I genuinely think Sebastian Vettel could have been either on the podium or in and around the high points. Instead, if he finished outside the points, I know eventually Stroll managed to give them a point, but I mean, Seb's going to be very, very angry, because he could have been where Alonso was, fighting Max, fighting Sainz to try and get on the front row or pole, or at least a very, very good grid position.
So we saw both Astons out in Q1. Latifi at his home Grand Prix, still the slowest man.
I'm furious. Saying furious a lot, but he should have got driver of the day as well.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people that voted for him, and then he's just not on the list at all. Yeah. It was ridiculous.
And then obviously Tsunoda and Leclerc start from the back with grid penalties.
Interesting.
Russell would go to Leclerc.
Yeah, and Gasly was down there as well, wasn't
Gasly
he?
was
Tough
over
weekend for the Frenchman once again. On to the next 5 then, and this is where we saw...
surprising.
So, Checo Perez, the first thing I want to discuss. Under pressure, massive cock-up from the Red Bull driver.
I don't think he likes Canada, and we know Checo's never.
I was going to say, yeah, wet conditions.
Checo in the wet is not good.
All goes to shit for Perez.
Yeah.
And it's put a bit of a dampener on what's been some really good form of late. It's also left him a long way behind Max.
Yeah.
So, murmurs of, could Checo disrupt the team? Well, not philosophy, but kind of, what's it called? Hierarchy. Team hierarchy. Can you disrupt that? But he doesn't seem to be in the championship fight, really.
That Checo's we know over the season that Checo's quick, but Canada proved that Max has the consistency and the experience to win a world championship, whereas Perez, under pressure in the wet where he isn't great, the last thing he needs to do is put it in a wall.
Yeah, well, equally you could argue with Perez this weekend is that Leclerc didn't make overtakes early in the race, and he still came through and grabbed a very, very solid P5 considering his low grid
Perez
spot.
Would have been back up.
Perez already got himself up to P11, P10, that kind of area when he had to retire. So I don't think it's unfathomable to say he could have got P5 at the very least, maybe even challenge the Mercs with the safety car.
Okay, other result. See, Lando Norris had engine problems, PU problems.
Yeah, it was a strange weekend for McLaren. Lando, obviously, power unit problems.
Lando loves wet conditions, as we know. We've seen Russia and Imola and other races. And the McLaren didn't seem too bad. But yeah, him out. Albon, great result in P12 for Williams.
Yeah, on the weekend where one of the Williams was at home, it was the other one that seemed at home with the car.
And then the other person out in Q2 was Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah,
another one. And he got beaten by his teammate, Alfa Romeo teammate, Zhou Guanyu.
Interesting, the first time that Bottas has ever been outside the top 7 when starting the race at Canada. And Zhou's first Q3 appearance race for him. Ricciardo P9, finally in and around that lower top 10. But when you consider that Perez, Leclerc, Lando,
Bottas
weren't really at the races that weekend,
it doesn't.
It becomes a P13 when you throw some of those drivers in there. So I don't know.
Look at Russell P8.
He gambled on the softs at the end. If not, he probably would have been around the 4-5 mark. So definitely. Big gamble there, didn't pay off. He spun and put in a wall, but it was a light touch from on the rim.
Alpine looked very quick all weekend. Ocon P7. Then
I still don't think Ocon's maximising the car though. If you look where Alonso is, Ocon seems a long way off.
Especially at Canada.
Yeah, but to justify hampering Piastri's development to keep Ocon in the seat, it becomes debatable.
Yeah.
And then
Haas.
I just want to say on that quickly that Ocon has had a fantastic season. This was just a tough weekend. He's done very well this season. Outperformed Alonso massively.
Yeah. And then Haas 5-6. It's Haas's joint highest ever quali position. It's Mick Schumacher's highest quali position. And what set up for a great weekend for Haas.
I think they could have got a podium if it remained wet, but their pace just diminished in the dry.
Still got points if they had their problems.
Yeah, I mean Mick obviously retired and K-Mag
really strongly, and Mick got damaged by Hamilton.
Got hit by Lewis P4. Sainz P3, which is a big shock. Alonso on the front row. That was fantastic from Fernando Alonso. Max was so far ahead of everyone else, especially considering he was on a dry setup when others on the infield were on wet.
Max was 7/10 clear of Alonso.
Yeah, it was Max's weekend from start to finish. Definitely. Quickest in Q1, Q2 and Q3 by an absolute canter. And deserved race victory. I mean, we can start there with the race win for Max Verstappen.
We'll go from top to bottom this time. Max obviously won. Sainz did what he had to, just took P2. But with the late safety car, he actually gave Max a bit of a tough, well, not battle, but put a lot of pressure on.
That's the problem. Is that Ferrari is by no means miles off the Red Bull. In fact, you could argue they're equal or even. The Ferrari could be slightly ahead, but I would say they're very evenly matched at the moment. And Sainz didn't really look like he was ever going to trouble Verstappen majorly. I think that does just come with experience, though. And obviously they joined the sport at the same time, but Max's Formula 1 experience has been a lot different to Carlos.
He's battling at the front.
Exactly. He's won a world championship now. He knows what it takes to win races and to win championships. And I think that is the key difference between the Ferrari lineup and the Red Bull lineup this season. Because I think the cars are very evenly matched.
Yeah.
But the experience of Checo Perez, obviously 12 years in Formula 1, something like that, and the title fighting experience of Max Verstappen makes a massive difference right now in the championship, and I think that's why we see an 80-point gap before going into this weekend. And I think that Ferrari might have closed that up actually.
Yeah,
because obviously
So Sainz took P2.
Scored
then
more.
After Baku, my back hurts. After Toto Wolff saying that he didn't think Merck would be able to even finish the race in Canada due to their problems.
I was going to say, consecutive podiums now.
They took a 3-4.
Yeah,
they took a 3-4 in
consecutive
Canada.
podiums for the Merck drivers. Consecutive 3-4 finishes for the Merck drivers.
I just love the absolute shit that they chat. I think Toto Wolff thought they wouldn't be able to finish the race, and Hamilton's ended up back on the podium after looking like a 90-year-old granddad getting out of that F1 car at Baku.
Let's just say he got out of the car a bit quicker this weekend, but I was confused.
All on third, quick get me
by
out.
They obviously the FIA changed something to do with the porpoising, but it didn't really seem to have any effect on the order. I thought we might see Mercedes drop down a bit because obviously they'd have to raise the ride height, but seemingly not. I think we may see more of an effect in qualifying in the rain and also in the dry. And also when we go to other circuits, perhaps the difference could be greater, and we could see change in order.
It's just kind of nice to have a weekend where Sky didn't keep mentioning it, and Hamilton and Toto Wolff went bang on it.
Exactly. I've seen a lot of people though whinging that this season is the worst season in recent Formula 1 history. It's mainly Merck fans. It's mainly Merck fans, of course, but it's an interesting debate because their argument is we're not seeing enough overtakes. There's no massive increase in overtakes considering the regulations, and I saw someone say there's no at Merck there was always inter-team rivalry, and now there's not. Yeah. When on earth did Bottas and Hamilton ever fight? Until the final season, where Bottas knew he wasn't going to get a contract next season, so he just went, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want. He just moved out of Hamilton's way for 5 years, so...
Okay.
A small rant there, apologies, but
3-4, then...
I just think this season's it's not been the most exciting season ever, but mainly because every time we get a championship fight, like the top two are they're going to have to fight at one point recently. One of them has reliability issues. Yeah. Look at Bahrain, obviously Max out with the DNF. Australia the same.
We haven't seen a proper Verstappen Leclerc.
I was going to say Canada, obviously Leclerc to take penalties. Azerbaijan. Max would have had to overtake Leclerc again. Yeah. We would have seen a battle, but we didn't because Leclerc blew up.
The one was Imola, and that was when and that was only the sprint where Max breezed past Leclerc.
Yeah.
That was all we saw. Speaking of Leclerc,
but to be fair, Bahrain was a good battle until eventually, we saw Max out, and then there's been a few. I mean, Saudi Arabia was a brilliant battle. Max just about won out there.
The big one.
What other races Leclerc DNF from recently? Spain.
If no one had
they probably would have had a fight there at one point.
We'd see races like Saudi every race, because that's very good. But Leclerc P5 expected in that Ferrari. Flew through the grid up to P5, and then Alpine. They'll be happy with an Ocon in 6, but an Alonso in 9th. He was very angry.
Well, so Alonso was P7 at the final classification. But 5-second penalty for weaving on the straight when defending from Bottas knocks him behind both Alfa Romeo drivers. Takes 4 points away from Alpine, which drops them further behind McLaren. Though obviously they have gained on McLaren this weekend, but they would have been within 4 points and now 8 points behind. And Alfa Romeo close up the gap to Alpine with a very solid weekend.
Alpine messed up strategy badly. Yeah, I think they're easy taking a podium.
I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah,
I don't know why they just went, well, we're never going to pit ever.
Such a good quality, and Alonso having really good pace, they threw it all away because they decided not to pit him.
Yeah, I did see someone say that if Alonso was in the Ferrari, he'd have won the race. Which I thought it's an interesting debate. If Alonso was in a championship, a car that could fight for championships,
the best car on the grid. You could really say that for anyone, couldn't you? Though
I don't know. Because but the argument is Sainz isn't good enough to be able to mix it with Max Verstappen, which I don't think is very fair, considering I don't think there's many drivers.
No.
I'd say only Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc in equal machinery could mix it with Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
And Charles Leclerc's a little bit of a loose one there.
Because
but
the thing with Perez is he hasn't really mixed it with Verstappen. He is just... Perez has... When he's won, Max has either been out or not in second. Monaco, Max was down in P4 behind both Ferrari. P3 in the end. No, it was P4. I can't remember.
No, P3 in Monaco, Leclerc was P4.
Okay, so Alpine, that we just put a 6th and a 9th. Alfa Romeo, though, what a weekend. 7-8, but Zhou Guanyu picking up 4 more points, which he thoroughly deserves. Because he's had some great pace. I'd
argue he deserves 7th. He ran a much better race than Valtteri Bottas, but just got hampered by the fact that Lance Stroll just didn't pit forever and just held him up. And that was another contentious point with regard to overtaking. Is Zhou was sat behind him for ages, and it kind of killed the Zhou Guanyu's race. I feel bad for him a bit because he definitely deserved at least P7, and the fact that Bottas was managed to be ahead of him, obviously owed to the safety car somewhat, but I think Zhou has a right to feel a little bit aggrieved if he didn't get more points, but equally he would have only got 2 points without Alonso's penalty, so, karma goes around, comes around, that kind of stuff. And then, so Alonso P9,
Stroll took the final
Stroll taking the final point, very, very slow home race for him. I mean, that was going to be well placed, but I'm sure Mr. I'm extremely angry, Lawrence Stroll, is extremely buzzing.
Again, terrible
with
weekend for McLaren, no points.
11:15. Lando, again, no luck in Canada. Same for Albon, was running high in a very good position. Had a very slow stop, I believe it was.
Yeah. And
so I'm saying for Lando as well. Stuck behind Ricciardo.
Great.
And then, Latifi and Magnussen behind him, but Magnussen had the damage and then just kind of really all over the place from then on.
Same for Mick Schumacher, running in the points and then reliability issues. Take it away from him.
Last season never saw a black and orange flag. This season, every little bit of car knocked off is a black and orange flag. What I would also say, though, is that I think it's to do with the new cars. Because everyone's obviously getting to grips with the new cars. You don't really know when you go for a move or you're trying to defend where you can place the car in a way that the other driver isn't going to clip a little bit. Or, you're not going to clip a little bit if you're going for it. So I do think we've seen it now with Tsunoda and Magnussen. Obviously, Tsunoda was just his rear wing falling apart. There's nothing he could have done about that. Yeah. But again, that owes to the new cars trying to learn how they work. Yeah, and we've now seen Magnussen and Tsunoda be dumped out the points through these incidents where they can't really control. I mean, we didn't even see. I'm not even seeing what happened to Magnussen to give him that damage.
The contact of Lewis.
I do remember now. That through turn 3, right?
Yes.
He just went really aggressively for it. I mean, a little bit. I'd say that's more Magnussen there. Don't know why you're going for it there. That's not an overtaking opportunity. That's it's one of the tightest corners in Formula 1.
You mentioned Yuki Tsunoda there.
Baku's turn 9 without the castle.
Yeah. You mentioned Yuki Tsunoda there. Again, we know he doesn't adapt well to new tracks, and coming out the pits on cold tyres, he just went straight on into the wall. But
that was such a strange moment.
I don't think he'll be too disappointed because he started from the back. But I don't know.
So strange.
The car just didn't turn, he went straight into the barrier.
Yeah, I'm so confused with that. And then, of course, Mick and Perez.
Both reliability.
Mechanical DNFs. Again, reliability strikes another team.
But not getting it right.
That I think it is very much wear with Perez, though that doesn't seem to be an issue. That seems to be gearbox. Yeah. So that implies wear, and that's something which I'm very confused why Red Bull didn't take penalties after Perez's qualifying result. Because you can get grid penalties out of the way then, because we know they're going to have to. The Red Bulls are going to have to take penalties later on in the season because of the reliability issues earlier in the season. So Perez definitely could have taken penalties and would have still been ahead of Tsunoda and Leclerc. Yeah. So a bit confusing there from Red Bull. I think maybe they thought Perez would cut through a lot easier, and obviously they couldn't foresee that Perez would go pop. Let's discuss the championship order then. So not a lot of change in the Drivers' Championship. I don't think a single position changed. Apart from Zhou climbed above Stroll and Albon. I believe that's it. And, Alonso, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
No, not in the end. He only got a point.
Yeah.
I forgot he basically did nothing now.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing, no real change here. But we'll discuss it anyway. Top of the pile, Max Verstappen, of course. There are the points have to go somewhere, and they've gone to Max again. 175 points. Of the races he's finished first in all but one. That was Monaco, where he took P3.
Wow.
So without those reliability issues at Bahrain and Australia, I'd argue there's another 36 points for him there. And that would take his tally to 211.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
of course, you can apply that logic to Perez and Leclerc, and then argue that he wouldn't have got the win in Spain. So I'm not saying how unlucky Max has got, because obviously Charles has got equally unlucky. So yeah, and the only reason there is that massive gap now is Perez obviously had his problems, and then
Leclerc only got P5.
Charles started from the back, So 46 points behind Max Verstappen is Sergio Perez, 129, 3 points behind him. Leclerc in third now. I think very much Leclerc will finish second in the championship. Without engine failures and mechanical problems, Leclerc is, I'd argue, outperforming Perez right now. George Russell, P4, 111 points for the Brit. In the top 5 in every race. He continues that record here at Canada. I do think it'll be well funny though if he does it all through the races, which no one is that asked about. He won't really, considering Britain is coming next. Yeah. It'll be brilliant if he's done so well throughout this period, and then when he gets to the one which really matters for him and for Lewis and for Mercedes, imagine that would be amazing if the two of them came together.
Then Lando wins.
Going into Cops, no, Lewis has got it all crossed up again.
Yeah. Lando wins, home Grand Prix.
But yeah, Russell fourth, Sainz then 9 points behind in fifth, Hamilton P6, 77 points, Lando P7, but he's only 4 points ahead of Bottas, who's on 46, Lando on 50. I think Bottas is definitely going to take that P7 soon, and even Ocon is only 11 points behind Lando now in P9. Alonso's just behind his teammate, but a good 21 points behind his teammate in terms of points. Again, losing out once again this weekend, despite the fact he qualified P2 and Ocon was P7. P7. So interesting that again. Pierre Gasly 11th, Magnussen 12th, Ricciardo 13th. Seb 14th, Yuki 15th. Those have been rotating around the points, those 5. It's been such a strange... Yuki's got unlucky at times, Vettel's got unlucky at times, Ricciardo's been very slow, K-Mag's been... Every time he's up in the points, K-Mag, Lewis Hamilton decides to break his car. It's happened now at Miami, happened again here. I feel for K-Mag, but when he's driving around anywhere that has an American accent, he will be shunted by Lewis Hamilton, so he needs to watch out at COTA and Las Vegas next year. Pierre Gasly then, also poor start to the season, but he's starting to regain some form now, and P11's pretty decent, to be fair, considering that AlphaTauri doesn't look stunning. Zhou Guanyu, P16, 5 points, then it's Albon on 3, Stroll on 3 as well, and the only 2 drivers to score 0, Schumacher and Latifi. So Hulkenberg is still ahead of Latifi in the championship, because obviously he recorded a higher non-point scoring finish than Latifi has. On to the constructors. Red Bull now over the 300 point mark, 304. Ferrari, I was going to say just behind, but it's 74 points. 76 points, sorry.
I think constructors will be a lot closer than the drivers will be at this rate.
What?
I think the Constructors' Championship will be a lot closer
than the drivers.
Yeah.
76 points compared to 46 points. All it takes is a Verstappen DNF and a Leclerc win, and suddenly that's to 20 points. Merck, considering they've had these back-breaking porpoising problems, are 40 points off Ferrari.
That's George
Russell.
And
Ferrari are supposed to be the front running car, and Merck is supposed to be last and have no backs, no spines. McLaren are in 4th, 65 points. Alpine 8 points behind them in P5, and it's Alfa Romeo in 6th, just 6 points behind Alpine. That midfield battle between McLaren, Alpine, and Alfa Romeo starting to hot up. It's interesting because I think if Zhou can continue, if he doesn't get any more misfortune, he continues his pace, he will end up on more than Ricciardo.
Well, definitely.
I think Bottas will end up on more than Norris, and then Alpine and Ocon outperforming both the McLaren drivers right now, respectively. So I think McLaren need to start, up in the performance soon. If not, they are going to be in trouble. But Britain up next, home race for them, home race for Norris. Interesting to see what happens there. P7's Alpha Tauri, 27 points. Aston 8th with 16. Haas a 9th somehow. They've ended up back down there. 15 points for them. And then Williams, they're 10th with just 3 points to their name. All scored by Alexander Albon.
Shock.
That's the thing. The two drivers who I think desperately need to be replaced for next season, Schumacher and Latifi, weighing their teams down. Because a few points, I know obviously Albon's not going to set the world alight, but considering that Williams looks horseshit, there's no other way of putting it. That's how it's looked most season. He's on 3, Latifi's on 0, and then of course Magnussen on 15, Schumacher on none. I think those two are the drivers that need to go. If you haven't watched our video about why Piastri should be in that Williams seat, go watch that. That'll be linked in the end screen. But yeah, thank you very much for watching today's video. Next time out at Silverstone, of course, we'll have all 4 for FIA Formula Thing series. You've got F1, F2, F3 and W Series as well. So a very action-packed British Grand Prix weekend. We'll be bringing you 4 preview videos on that Friday going into the race weekend, and then of course 4 review videos on the Monday, wrapping up a weekend of high-octane action. But yeah, that is all from us today. Hope you enjoyed the video a lot. I forgot words there, but yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.